Joining us on set this morning to discuss is CBS News contributor Elliot Ackerman, who's a Marine Corps and Special Operations veteran. So good to have you on set, as always. So, look, we were just talking with Catherine about this question of whether the weapons have been depleted. There's a lot of criticism of how the U.S. has approached the war in Iran. Of course, we heard from the president, it's going to be done in a couple of weeks. Here we are. What's your response to some of those criticisms?
I think they're real, and they, call into question sort of the strategic posture of the United States and our ability not only to, replenish these stores, but the fact from just like these interceptors, like a Tomahawk missile or a Patriot missile. In some cases, they take as long as 4 years to replenish stores. So every Tomahawk or Patriot that's being fired in Iran is one that is not sitting in a magazine on the other side of the world in Guam in case we have to deal with our adversaries in China. So our posture as a nation right now is not like it was at the end of World War II, where we had this massive defense industrial base that was extremely responsive. And we need to contend with that, not only with what's going on in Iran, but also, what U.S. defense strategy is in the next decade going forward.
So let me ask you about that strategy as it relates to this proposal that the president has been sort of bandying about, which is allowing Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium. But now the president's walking that back a bit. He's saying now that if Saudi Arabia is going to be able to do this, that they have to sign on to the Abraham Accords as part of his nuclear deal, of course, which would normalize relations with Israel. The historic perspective from the Saudis has been, until there is a viable two-state solution, we're not signing on to any kind of an agreement like that. What are the chances that that happens? And why would the president want Saudi Arabia to be allowed to enrich uranium and perhaps not, let's say, another ally like, it just feels like it comes out of left field for a lot of people.
It does, and it seems a little bit incoherent because on Wednesday there's an agreement, then on Thursday there isn't an agreement unless the Saudis recognize Israel. But the Saudis have also said that they will never recognize Israel unless there is a Palestinian state, and we seem very far away from that right now. And by the way, this entire war is being fought on the notion that we don't want a nuclearized Persian Gulf. So why are we going to fight a war not to have the Iranians have it, but then to give the Saudis a nuclear weapon? So a little bit of chaos, a little bit of confusion. I mean, that's often par for the course of the Trump administration. So I think we're just going to have to watch and sort of play this one through as he deals with the Saudis.
It almost feels like the president took a mulligan because he knows that the Saudis will never agree to be part of the Abraham Accords. And it's like, okay, well, then the deal's not happening.
Right, which begs the question of why was the deal there in the first place?
100%.
I want to ask you about some sort of another front that seems to be developing with this war. You've got the Houthis attacking Saudi Arabian tankers. We've always talked about the Strait of Hormuz, right? Now we seem to have another one. And we've also talked about how Iran's strategy does seem to be hold on, not necessarily win the war, but wait for the U.S. to just kind of say, okay, I've got too much pressure maybe from my voters going into the midterms. How do you think this changes the game now that the Houthis have decided to enter the conflict?
Right. Well, I think this, this war is sort of about two variables, right? Pain and time. How much pain can you take and over what period of time? So with what's going on in the Houthis and shutting down the transportation of oil to Saudi markets in the Red Sea and overland, we're seeing that's pain. That's economic pain not only for the Saudis, but for the entire world as the price of oil goes over $100 a barrel. And then there's this question of time, right? And from the U.S. perspective, we have midterm elections coming up. I mean, the Iranians understand our domestic politics, and President Trump knows he is probably running out of time to be able to have a solution to this war that he can take credibly to the American people and not have this be something that, looks as though it's been overall a strategic failure. And the Iranians understand that. So I think, when I'm watching, I'm thinking about, okay, how is either side inflicting pain and over what time scale are they doing it?
Pain and time, it's a good metric in order to judge it by. Elliot Ackerman, always great to have you on set.
Thanks, Elliot. Appreciate it.